We think we know everything there is to know about dinosaurs, and then these facts pop up. Take a seat there, kiddos, and let your good old narrator, Gentleman T-Rex, tell you all about some new dinosaur facts. Are you one of the people that think that the T-Rex doesn't deserve its title as King of the Dinosaurs? Well, wait till number 1. It'll probably change your mind. With all that said and done, let's begin, shall we? You know, humans are pretty lucky to have evolved quite late in the evolutionary timeline. If we arrived maybe just a few million years earlier, we might have not ended up being a dominant species that we are today. Heck, we'd probably be too scared to leave our caves, mainly because of these upcoming animals. Number 1 is pretty frightening, so stay tuned for that. The dino in Deinosuchus derives from the same root as the dino in dinosaur, meaning fearsome or terrible. In this case, the description is perfect. Deinosuchus was one of the largest prehistoric crocodiles that ever lived, attaining lengths of up to 33 feet from head to tail and weighs in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 tons. And although it's significantly smaller than its predecessor, the Sarcosuchus, it was definitely no less frightening. In fact, it can be said that it duked it out with more ferocious opponents than its predecessor. There is actual fossil evidence that the Deinosuchus regularly fought and won against the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex. What's worse, though, is, like their modern descendants, prehistoric crocodiles were constantly growing, in the case of Deinosuchus at the rate of about 1 foot per year. So it's difficult to know exactly how long the longest-lived specimens were, or at what point in their life cycles they reached maximum size. Other than its enormous proportions, Deinosuchus was remarkably similar to modern crocodiles, an indication of how little the crocodilian line of evolution has changed over the past 100 million years. I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Usually the T-Rex is billed as the most terrifying of all dinosaurs. However, it wasn't the biggest one, not by a long shot. Unless other fossils are found, the current title for biggest carnivorous dinosaur goes to the Spinosaurus, which was the antagonist in Jurassic Park 3, and actually took down our good old King Rex. There were at least 2 different subspecies of Spinosaurus, and they lived about 112 million to 97 million years ago in the swamplands of North America. While researchers know that the Spinosaurus was huge, even bigger than the T-Rex, they aren't exactly sure how big it was because they only have incomplete fossils. They would have been at the very least about 40 feet, but according to some projections they would have been to 59 feet long and weighed 7.7 to 9.9 tons. That's as big as 1.5 school buses. They also have massive chests, so it's more than likely they spent most of their time in the water, similar to crocodiles and alligators. Besides its awesome size, the most notable feature of the Spinosaurus is its bony sail on its back. In fact, that is where the beast gets their name, spine lizard. The sails were 7 feet long, and no one is exactly sure what they were used for, but there are theories that it was used to cool off the Spinosaurus. Long before enormous sharks like the Great White, long before even the giant marine reptiles of the Age of Dinosaurs, in a world where animal life had only just begun to leave the seas, the biggest, meanest, scariest predator around was an armored sea monster aptly called Dunkleosteus. These fish had thick, bony plates covering their skulls, and with a full body length of up to 20 feet, the armored headgear of the largest Dunkleosteus fossils are positively nightmarish. Dunkleosteus did not have true teeth. Instead, the skull's bony plates extended into sharpened fangs in front of the mouth. These fangs scraped together, continuously sharpening each other as the fish opened and closed its jaws. The actual hunting and feeding style of Dunkleosteus is also a popular subject of interest. Weighing up to 3.5 tons, Elasmotherium was the largest member of the family of rhinos that lived from the Pliocene to Pleistocene epochs. It lives on the Eurasian grasslands ranging from southwestern Russia and Ukraine to Kazakhstan and Siberia. It wasn't only bigger and badder than any of its contemporaries, it also had the largest horn, jutting out of its forehead at 13 feet long. This animal specialized in feeding on grass and underground parts of plants, coastal rivers, and lakes. One example is highly starchy rhizomes of sedges, cattail, and reed. But don't make the mistake of thinking that this massive beast is a gentle plant eater. Like modern rhinos, it has 2 characteristics which don't actually go together well. It has very poor eyesight and a bad temper. Charge first, ask questions later is definitely this animal's mantra. And also don't make the mistake of thinking that it's a lumbering giant, because despite its massive size and prominent shoulder hump, it's thought that the Siberian unicorn was actually adapted to running at speed. Nope. Despite the name, this has nothing to do with hallucination-inducing pharmaceuticals. But given that this next item on our list is a worm with legs, you'll be forgiven if you think you're hallucinating. Hallucigenia is unlike nearly any living animal today, although it was likely the ancestor to modern-day arthropods. There were over 109 specimens of these strange aquatic creatures, and they ranged in size from 0.5 to 3 centimeters long. It had a round, worm-like body that was likely squishy to the touch. Like arthropods and worms, it was an invertebrate, so it didn't have a backbone. However, it did have hard, sharp spikes that stuck out of its back and likely kept potential predators away. It also had clawed tentacle-like appendages, which functioned more or less like legs that helped it move around the ocean floor. It also had a weird head, which had a pair of simple eyes and, weirdly, what seemed to be a permanent grin on its face, like the one you see on the face of someone who's up to no good. Or the Joker. And that kind of proves that point, actually. The fastest known dinosaurs are believed to be a part of a group of theropod dinosaurs called ornithomimids. One of the most famous subspecies is the Gallimimus bullatus, which are the ostrich-like dinosaurs in the first Jurassic Park movie. It's believed that they could run around 50 miles per hour. However, given that they are toothless, they probably don't eat meat, so this entry isn't about them. On the other hand, a dinosaur that was definitely fast and terrifying was the Carnotaurus sastrae, which means meat-eating bull. It got its name because of the bull-like horns on its head, which it would have used to bully other Carnotauruses trying to enter its territory. Also, unlike the Gallimimus, the Carnotaurus was a pretty big animal. They were 13 feet tall, nearly 30 feet long, and weighed up to 2 tons. Despite their huge size, they were surprisingly fast thanks to their massive thighs, which were up to 15% of their body weight. According to calculations, they would have been able to reach speeds of 40 miles per hour. It would be like trying to outrun a car that is driving over the speed limit on a city street, but instead of being run over, well, you stand the chance of being bitten in half. Many people just hate creepy crawlies, especially scorpions. It probably has something to do with their menacing looks, painful and sometimes even venomous stings, and a couple of pincers that look like they can sever fingers with no effort at all. It's a good thing we weren't around 450 million years ago, because if today's scorpions creep you out, imagine what an 8-foot-long scorpion's gonna do to your nerves. Pentacopterus was a species of sea scorpion that was discovered back in 2015. They are the oldest scorpion species ever discovered, with their fossils dated to be around 458 to 467 million years old. With the few fossils that we have, we can deduce that it wasn't the biggest scorpion ever, but at over 6 feet long, it's not really a pixie either. It was described as fierce and predatory, and was thought to occupy the top of the food chain in the waters where it called home, and it probably fed on any creature smaller than itself. The Apatosaurus, which lived about 155 to 159 million years ago, is commonly called a Brontosaurus, even though there is no such thing as a Brontosaurus. The whole mix-up started way back in 1877, but we're not here to talk about that. In any case, the incorrect name stuck. The Apatosaurus became very famous because of its amazing size. They were about 70 to 75 feet long, like a 7-story building laying on its side. They weighed close to 20 tons, making them one of the biggest land animals in the entire history of Earth. The thing is, there are a lot of bigger and heavier dinosaurs out there. What truly sets this animal apart is its tail, which they use like a bullwhip Indiana Jones style. According to computer calculations, they could whip their tails so fast that it broke the sound barrier, creating a sonic boom. This would have made a cannon-like boom that would have been heard for miles. While it wasn't an effective weapon, it should have been used as a warning or way to scare potential predators. They also would have stomped their feet on the ground, and if this didn't crush attackers, the tail whip and the stomping would have made a lot of chaotic noise, scaring the living daylights out of would-be predators. The Triceratops horridus, which means 3-horned face, was a herbivore, but it still wasn't an animal you'd want to come across. They were 10 feet tall, 30 feet long, and they weighed 4 to 6 tons. If it's hard to visualize, just think of a rhino as big as a mid-sized elephant, but 100% meaner. Of course, the Triceratops' most notable feature is its 3 horns. There were 2 above their eyes and 1 above their mouth. When a Triceratops reached adulthood, the horns were 3 feet long and curved upwards. It was used to fight with other Triceratops over made sand territory. However, they were also used to fight off the apex predator that lived at the same time as them, the T-Rex. Evidence they would have been able to fend off a T-Rex was that a Triceratops fossil had a healed wound from a T-Rex's bite, suggesting the Triceratops was able to fight off the dominant predator and lived long enough after the encounter for the bite to heal. If you were bad enough to thwart an attack from the meanest predator around, you're someone I don't think people would want to mess around with. The prefix mega is usually reserved for only the biggest, and this prefix definitely applies to this next entry on our list. Not only was Mega Piranha at least 10 times as big as modern piranhas, but it wielded its dangerous jaws with an additional order of magnitude of force. At least according to a recently published study by an international research team. The largest variety of modern piranha, the black piranha, chows down on prey with a biting force of 70 to 75 pounds per square inch, or about 30 times its own body weight. By contrast, the mega piranha chomped with a force of up to 1,000 pounds per square inch, or about 50 times its own body weight. Mega piranha was an all-purpose predator of the Miocene epoch, chowing down not only on fish and any mammals or reptiles foolish enough to venture into its river habitat, but also large turtles, crustaceans, and other shelled creatures. To some people, it may not be shocking that dinosaurs were cannibals. After all, they were carnivorous animals that needed a lot of food to sustain themselves. So one dinosaur eating another dinosaur of the same species must have happened all the time, right? Well, not exactly. Even though the dinosaurs lived for 65 million years, there is only one confirmed case of dinosaur cannibalism. The confirmed case of dinosaur cannibalism involved the Majungasaurus, which lived in Madagascar from 70 to 66 million years ago, and they were considered the T-Rex of the southern hemisphere. They were about 8 feet tall, 23 feet long, weighed anywhere between a ton and a ton and a half, and they were the biggest predator living in the area at the time. That is why when researchers found the bones of a Majungasaurus with big serrated teeth marks in it, they concluded it had come from another Majungasaurus, because there wasn't another predator large enough to have left them. That finding suggests that, for unknown reasons, one Majungasaurus decided to eat one of its own. Pack or herd behavior is more common in herbivores rather than in carnivores. That is because there was always safety in numbers. While there is some evidence to suggest that a few species did live in packs, it's unclear if pack hunting among carnivores was common or not. However, one large carnivore that may have been a pack animal is the Mapusaurus rosei. Researchers believe that this is because of a quarry in Patagonia. They found more than half a dozen Mapusaurus' bones. This would suggest that at least they lived together when they died. This would have been bad for potential prey, because a Mapusaurus would have been dangerous enough to encounter one-on-one. For one thing, they were bigger than a Tyrannosaurus rex. They were also nearly 41 feet long, 13 feet tall, and weighed about 8 tons. It's believed that they lived together in order to take down the biggest dinosaur that lived in the area, the Argentinosaurus, which weighed 10 times more than the Mapusaurus. Yep, we're still keeping it in the terrifying insect category, and when it comes to fright factor, this one ranks up there with the scariest of them. It is generally considered that the maximum potential size of an insect is dictated by how much oxygen is available in the atmosphere. Today, 21% of the atmosphere is breathable oxygen, but back in the Carboniferous era, it was around 35%. And because of the abundance of oxygen, insects like Meganeura were able to grow up to epic sizes. Meganeura really is a beast, and is likely to have hunted and fed in much the same way as dragonflies do today. Phoberomus pattersoni was a genus of rodents that lived in the ancient Orinoco River Delta around 8 million years ago. Now, just because these are rodents doesn't mean that they're exactly like modern-day rodents, oh no. You're gonna be pretty hard-pressed to see a sewer rat the size of a cat these days, and even the capybara, the world's largest living rodent, is relatively minuscule compared to Phoberomus pattersoni. Because you see, Phoberomus pattersoni is quite possibly the largest rodent ever to have walked the earth. An almost complete skeleton was discovered in Yuramoco, Venezuela in 2000, and based on this, researchers have been able to reconstruct its size and probable lifestyle. It was 9.8 feet long, with a tail at 4.9 feet, and probably weighed between 550 and 1540 pounds. In other words, roughly the size of a bull. Like many other rodents, Phoberomus was an herbivore with high crown premolars and molars, teeth definitely not suited for a hunter. Possibly the largest prehistoric dog that ever lived, Epicyon was a true canid, belonging to the same general family as wolves, hyenas, and modern dogs. Epicyon was approximately 5 feet long and weighed around 500 pounds. That made it about the size and weight of a lioness. Paleontologists assume that this animal hunted in packs like wolves, but they aren't exactly sure. It may have hunted in packs, or it may have been a solitary scavenger, much like a modern-day hyena. When you first look at Epicyon pictures, you might come to the conclusion that this animal was some kind of big cat. It possessed unusually powerful jaws and teeth, which made its head look more like that of a big cat than a dog or a wolf. That's about everything scientists know about this prehistoric canid. We don't even know what these guys ate. Which one of these bad boys would more likely be in your nightmares tonight? Have you ever been chased by a turkey? You haven't? Well, lucky you. Being chased by one as a kid, I can say that I don't have a lot of love for the bird. Not even for Thanksgiving. Go ahead, laugh it up. But did you know that once upon a time there existed 9-foot-tall giant turkeys that are considered to be the top predators during their time? They are Forus racidae, or better known by their nickname, terror birds. There were about 25 species in this family of flightless birds, some as small as 3 feet, while others can grow to 9 feet tall. Thankfully, they are all extinct now, but during their heyday they ruled South America. After a meteor wiped out Velociraptor and Tyrannosaurus rex, the terror bird family rose to occupy the niche of terrifying top predator in South America, all the while going on a smorgasbord of plant-eating mammals, a supremacy that lasted almost 60 million years. Dinosaurs had a rather large range in terms of size. The smallest known dinosaur, the Compsognathus, only grew to about the size of a chicken. On the other side of the scale was Argentinosaurus. Amazingly, these two ends of the spectrum lived in the same time period as one another, which was about 94 to 97 million years ago. The Argentinosaurus not only holds the record for the biggest dinosaur, but it is also the heaviest and longest land creature to ever live. Despite being so massive, the Argentinosaurus started off small. Their eggs were about the size of coconuts, and when they were born, they weighed a little more than 10 pounds. It took about 40 years to grow to their full size, which was about 26 feet tall, and they were 121 feet long. That's about as long as 3 school buses. They also weighed 100 tons, which is about as much as 12 African elephants. In order to sustain their size, they would have needed 100,000 calories a day, which is about 200 Big Macs worth. Perhaps the most impressive feat this animal could do was rise up and stand on its back feet. If some unlucky dinosaur or even huge carnivores were to get underfoot, they'd be flattened like pancakes. This one is more common knowledge, but according to the Jurassic Park movies, velociraptors were 6-foot-tall dinosaurs that hunted in packs. As menacing as they were on screen, they were nothing close to that in real life. While it's highly probable they hunted in packs, they weren't nearly as big as they were in the movies. They were more like the size of a small turkey. At most, they were 6 feet long from nose to tail, and they weighed up to 33 pounds. Instead, the movie velociraptors are more based on the Deinonychus, which lived on Earth over 25 million years earlier than the velociraptor. It was about 3 feet tall and had a large hooked claw on its foot. What's also amazing is that the same month that the first Jurassic Park movie was released, the description of the biggest raptor ever found was revealed. It was then called the Utahraptor austromyosaurus, or simply the Utah Raptor. When it was published, it was very similar to the size of Jurassic Park's raptors. The Utah Raptor was about 23 feet long and about 6 feet tall, and they weighed 1,100 pounds. They also had long toe talons, which was 9.5 inches long. It would be used to tear flesh to hold down prey while they chomped down on it. Ankylosauruses were plant eaters that lived about 122 million years ago and went extinct about 66 million years ago. The Ankylosaurus were often potential prey for big predators at the time, mostly the T-Rex, but luckily they developed several defensive armaments. One of them was that they had bony armor plates that covered their body, and the second was that it had a powerful clubbed tail, which was one of their most useful weapons. It was made of tightly interlocking vertebrae, and at the end was a bony ball. With smaller tails, which were most likely found on younger Ankylosauruses, it would have hit its predator with the same amount of force as a bowling ball. However, bigger tails could have struck blows that were somewhere between 364 and 718 megapascals of impact stress, which is powerful enough to break a T-Rex's ankle. Breaking an ankle could have been a serious problem for the T-Rex because of obvious reasons. If they could walk after the blow, their mobility would have been severely limited until it healed. If it healed, at least. If that's the case though, hopefully Ankylosaurus' meat was a delicacy for the T-Rex because they sound like a lot of work to have to eat. The Tyrannosaurus rex lived in the late Cretaceous period about 65 to 70 million years ago in modern western North America from Alberta to Texas and is always considered to be the king of all dinosaurs, hence its name, which means king of tyrant lizards. But why do we call it that though? While it's certainly not the biggest or fastest dinosaur, or even the largest carnivore for that matter, the T-Rex is the most famous and feared dinosaur because of a few things. One is that while it's certainly not the fastest or the biggest, it is still big and fast regardless. Using their powerful thighs and tails, studies suggest that they would reach speeds of 10 to 25 miles per hour. 2. They had big teeth. They were up to a foot long and serrated. However, they weren't exactly sharp. They were wide and slightly dull. This was a way to deal with prey that was fighting against their death in the T-Rex's mouth because apparently blunt teeth hold struggling prey much firmer. And finally, they had the strongest bite out of any land predator that ever lived. It could reach up to 12,814 pounds of force, which is about as much force as a medium-sized elephant taking a seat. Which scary fact surprised you the most? Let us know in the comment section down below.